I know that you're going to just love this week's podcast episode. I'm joined by my lovely member, Chloe Gray from Miss Gray and Play, and she's going to be sharing with us her top tips for embracing yoga as an early years educator and working with the children to try and bring in more calmness, but also how it supports other areas of learning, like your mark making, your social development. So there's so much that we cram into today's show, and I just hope you enjoyed it. So Chloe, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what it is you do.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So my name's Chloe Gray, but some of you might know me as Miss Gray and Play because that's the name I use on Instagram and social media. So if any of you are my followers, then hi and thank you. So I am currently a nursery teacher in the Manchester area, but I've taught across the IFS and Key Stage 1. I started in Leeds actually, where you're based. So basically, I just consider myself one of your listeners and followers. That's why I'm so super excited to be on your podcast with you. But I'm definitely a big lifelong learner. So I've got my hands in sort of many pies, so to speak, for want of a better phrase. So I started out with my background was psychology, my degree, and then I did my early years PGCE. And since then, I've carried on through doing my masters and my forest school, level 3 training, and now I'm doing my 200-hour Yoga Alliance teacher training. So it all kind of comes together with me being very passionate about play and early development, but with that sort of well-being focus. So yeah, definitely don't think of myself as being a super expert in these areas, but I think it's something I'm really interested in and love to sort of share and learn with everybody, really. So
Yeah. Oh, thank you. You have got so much experience, and I love all the different areas as well that you've got knowledge in, and that you're still developing as well, and recognizing the fact that we are lifelong learners. We don't just get to a point in our career and stop and think, right, I know what I'm doing now. I just get on and do it. You are constantly thinking, what else can I learn about to reflect on with my practice as well? So I really like that. And there's so much we could talk about today in terms of forest school, psychology, well-being, yoga, early years, play. But I think for today's podcast, my listeners would love to know a little bit more about yoga and how we can use yoga to not only support our own well-being, but that of the children's as well. So would you mind just telling us a little bit about your journey into yoga, how you discovered it personally?
yeah, definitely. So I think like lots of teachers, and I think it's something that you talk about a lot, we do have quite a demanding job, and at times we can be very busy and very stressed. So I originally started yoga as an exercise practice, and then I found that it had so many more layers and so many other things that it sort of impacted in my life, and really sort of helped in all the other aspects like my career as well. So we think of often the asanas, the postures, as being yoga, the different shapes that you get into, but really it's a very, very sort of old, ancient. It's got 8 limbs originally. Oh, sorry, my cat's just.
Don't worry, my cat will probably appear as well at some point, so it's absolutely fine. We love cats here.
So
Oh, so cute. Hi, what's your cat called?
Noosa. I knew
Oh,
I got the dogs out. I was like, I've sent them away, and I thought the cat's gonna definitely make him. Sorry, I'll start that bit again. 8 limbs of yoga. So the postures are just one part, and there's lots in terms of the way that you. Oh, for real. Try to figure out again. Honestly.
oh, cats love their 5 minutes of fame, don't they?
It's right on my work when when I'm doing something live straight across it.
Oh.
So so the 8 limbs of yoga. So yeah, there's the postures, the asanas that people tend to know, but then there's lots of other areas as well. So it's to do with how you live your life, but also lots of things with breathing and meditation. So it can give you a lot in terms of your own kind of stress reduction and stress management. So I've really found that it supported my own well-being, and I will talk later when I talk about how it's beneficial for children and go into that in a little bit more detail. But I really found that from practicing yoga on my mat, I could take a lot of that into my day-to-day life. So if I would be trying different challenging postures, I could then go into work, and if there was a challenging thing happening, I found I could sort of take a breath and, you know, before I reacted, and it changed sort of my abilities to deal with stress and things. So I think it can be really useful for teachers in particular. I think we're all quite aware of teacher burnout being a difficulty that we face, but equally I think the impact that has on the children. So the fact that if we can't, that phrase, you can't give from an empty cup, if you're sort of feeling stressed and burnt out, it can be quite difficult to keep that positive feeling in your classroom. So that self-care that for you is going to also be really beneficial to the children as well. So it's really important all around. But yeah, I loved it so much that I've ended up doing my teacher training. So I'm just sort of doing all my exams and finishing that. So there's so much more that you can take from it than I ever initially realised, really.
I think it's fantastic. And one thing that I recognise myself is that the more I invest in my own self-care, the more I have to give back, and the more successful I am as an early years teacher, as a leader, as an individual, just leading my normal everyday life. I can use those strategies that we learn through yoga, breathing techniques, or the postures, just to help equip me and make me feel better. So I am a big fan of yoga myself, and I just love the benefits of it. It's a really good tool just to have in our toolbox, just to go to when we are feeling stressed.
Definitely.
Now, do you find that you do yoga at a particular time of the day? Is it part of your sort of rhythm of the day? Do you start your day with it? Do you end your day with it? How do you sort of fit it in personally?
I mean, it's definitely varied a lot. I would love to say that, I manage it every day, and it's, the first thing I do in the morning. The reality is sometimes I'm busier than others. So sometimes it's happening sort of really naturally. And my favourite thing, which I usually find I can do more in the summer when it's sort of lighter and brighter, is that I can do it first thing in the morning. But then I do have to, if I'm having times where I'm quite busy and I'm quite stressed, I do have to say to myself, right, come on, book that class, go down to your local studio. So and I think those are the times where sometimes it can get lost, and you really have to sort of take note of yourself, how you're feeling, and sort of. So yeah, it does really vary. I think rather than thinking you need to do something perfectly and be doing it every day, it's better to do what you can imperfectly.
Absolutely. And I love the point that you made there about when we are so tired or we're so stressed, we think we haven't got the time to do things like yoga or mindfulness classes, but they're the times when we need it the most. So just scheduling in half an hour to do a class will just make the world of difference, really. And you'll get that time back because you'll feel more energized or just calmer in approaching the situation. So I like that. I like thinking about how to fit it in as well when you're feeling a little bit under pressure maybe, or stressed. So you obviously do lots of yoga yourself, but you've also brought that into your early years teaching as well. I'd love to know a bit more about that.
Definitely. So I've been using it with the children for quite a few years, again in lots of different ways. Sometimes I've been, it's been something that we've done really regularly. Other times we've brought it into different wellbeing days and events. So again, it's that idea of bringing it in where you can, and really sort of using it as your children need and as their interests are, and really responding to them in that way can be really beneficial with it, using it with children.
So in terms of yoga, how can it support children's actual development? Where does it link in to our knowledge of the child?
So I think there's lots of parallels with the benefits for adults in yoga and children with yoga, but there's a few additional things which can really support children's development as well. So the first one, which we all think of quite easily, is supporting mood and stress. So in the sense of children are very, very busy these days. They've got lots going on at school, and lots, especially as they move through school, they have got lots of exams and different things going on for them. They're very busy with different clubs, which is all amazing, but they feel that same sense of busyness and of stress that adults do. So it's really important to give them the tools from a young age for knowing that they can give themselves that time, that special time to calm themselves, and different tools to do that. So everything that yoga brings with breathing and meditation and mindfulness, and that focus on your movement and how exercise is great for you, all that stuff brings so many benefits to children's development. Also, I think that yoga does quite a lot for children's emotional development. So taking that time to connect in with your body and your mind, you do tend to notice a lot, especially if you're in your yoga practice, you'll be thinking, oh, I'm feeling really like this, and you're living so busy all day, you didn't even realise that you were feeling that way. So giving that time for children to check in with themselves, and then it supports that emotional regulation by giving them opportunities to breathe and to see that how that calms the nervous system, and also to try challenging and difficult postures, and then see that passes, and that things move past that. So as I kind of spoke about with adults, you really can take that kind of off the mat into your life. So I think it can do lots for that as well. We do know lots about how movement can improve children's cognitive function. So even just on that level of day-to-day supporting children with brain breaks, and how movement can then help them to concentrate when you move back into their learning. So it can be very very beneficial for that clarity of mind that they'll experience afterwards. But also their improved strength within their bodies. And this one has been really interesting to me recently. This sort of is quite anecdotal from my own practice, but I'd be interested to see whether your listeners experience the same, or whether there'll be sort of increasing research coming in. But I really noticed that when I started doing yoga with my children, that especially when it came to core strength, so poses maybe like Navasana boat pose, where you're sitting on your hips and your arms and your legs are up, and you've really got to use your core to stay seated. Quite a few children really struggled with that core strength, and it was quite interestingly, and not that this is the be all and end all, because obviously children's holistic development is very important, but the children that maybe were reluctant writers and that struggled a bit in that area, I noticed they were the ones that were really struggling with their core strength. Mm-hmm. And I think lots of sports, football and team sports and things like that, were obviously very brilliant athletically, but the quite specific ones in terms of yoga and gymnastics and things that really target the core. So then as I was sort of watching these children, I was finding that they were the ones that would sort of sit on the edge of the carpet, and they'd be kind of slumped against some sort of side and things like that. It all goes back to that ability to sort of, if you're sat in your phonics group, or maybe if the children are at the writing table or whatever, that actual ability to hold your core up, and it is really what translates into that later writing ability. So I think sometimes we can focus on fine motor, and it is very important, but it really starts that strong core and that sort of pivoting your shoulder. So I think if we all know that yoga will be important for many things, for mindfulness and things, but if you maybe have a leadership team that need a bit of reassurance as to kind of how you're spending your time, making those links with that physical development and seeing how that can impact those children could be really beneficial as well. So a few other things for how it supports their development. There are lots of other health benefits which maybe aren't completely documented in terms of research yet, but it kind of comes from quite a lot of old Indian traditions, that it can support things like your digestion and sort of removing toxins from your body. So lots of other interesting things that might happen coincidentally. And I think for children, which is maybe slightly different to adults practicing yoga, but for children, the social element of yoga can be really important. So it is that community, and it can very much be for adults as well, but children's yoga is obviously done in a very very playful way with lots of stories and songs, but equally I think it's quite different from a lot of sports that children would play. So a lot of team sports, especially where there's quite a big focus on sort of winning, and you might get that competitive element, which can be really good for some children, but other children can find that quite difficult. And I think as teachers sometimes we might see how that changes behaviour maybe. And I think the beautiful thing about yoga is that it's very much about, it's a self practice, and it kind of removes that element of teams and us against you and things like that. It's a togetherness and a community. So it can be really lovely for your class's development if you know you're having a particularly tricky time or a tricky point in your day, to bring everybody together and kind of breathe together. It can be lovely.
Oh, some really, really valuable points there that you made. Thank you so much. You've got such a great wealth of knowledge, and I love how you're linking yoga to not just the impact on our well-being, but holistically on our writing, on our mood, on our social skills. And you've definitely given our listeners things to look out for as well. So be looking out for that child that's just slouched up against a piece of furniture, and thinking about how their posture is and how that relates to their writing. Really, really good and an interesting insight. And I also love the fact that you, as an educator, continue to be a researcher as well. Now, often when we think of a researcher, we think of someone that's got loads of books around them, they've got a clipboard, they're collecting data, but you or a listener can easily be a researcher just by reflecting on your practice and making changes accordingly to what you find out. And I really love that about you, Chloe, that you are so reflective and you're constantly thinking about what's best for these children that I've got right now. And how did you approach it with your children for the first time? Did you do a particular activity with them? Did you use a resource?
That's really interesting. So when I've taught with different age groups of children, and I've sort of approached it quite differently. So I think when it's with my really young ones, I'm in nursery at the moment, and it's been through when we've been sort of doing something maybe related to when we've been learning about flowers or things like that. I use a lot of movements, things like Makaton and things like that. So we started to use the postures to really illustrate our learning, and then as we've because you've got them for 3 hours, I've got them for 3 hours a day, my nursery children, so it's lots to fit in. So we've now started to bring it in again as and when's appropriate. So say there's a bit of time where things are feeling really, really busy and everything's sort of everywhere, we might have a moment where we go, okay, let's come together, and sort of we can use it to sort of bring that tone, bring us together as a group and take a breath. So it can be really good in that sort of way. But then with older children, when I've taught in Key Stage 1, it's been part of so PE and those sort of more regular brain breaks. So say when they're coming in from lunch, and you've got that sort of energy that you need to bring back together for learning, it's been more appropriate for those older children to have that, that more regular practice within their timetable there, really. So it's varied again with the children, but I think that's important to listen to your children's needs with it, definitely
to tune into them. So do you find that you use any particular resource? Do you use any like stories to introduce things, any video clips?
I've got loads of things to show you actually, which
I'm excited, I can't wait to see.
So I think most people will be quite aware that there's lots of videos that you can use. So Cosmic Kids is quite a popular one, and there's lots of them available through YouTube, and they can be very useful. You can link them a lot with different, if your children are interested in certain things, you can link it to your current learning. And I think maybe if you're not as sure, you've never done yoga before, they can be a really good place to start. I think like everything, you kind of can't replace somebody that's there teaching you and doing it with you to give you that feedback, especially when you're talking about keeping children safe. Certain postures, children have got, quite a lot, no fear, and they'll sort of just throw themselves into anything, which is great, but sometimes they need that sort of guidance and prompting. And I think if you really engage with it and try to think of things and plan for yourself, what you will give the children is a lot more than it's sort of if you're showing them a video. So I like to use, there's some books that you can get. So there's lots of them on Amazon and things like that. This is one that's got lots of games and ideas in. So this is called Sitting on a Chicken. And it's got lots of different games for different postures with learning outcomes in there. So that's quite a good one for you to pick up, but there's also quite a lot of progression in there, so you can really adapt that to the needs of your children.
I love the look of that book. I think that's really good if you're starting out with yoga and you need that support to get going. That looks great, and I will add anything that you share onto our show notes today so listeners can find the resources easily.
Perfect. And there's quite a few yoga stories as well. So this one is called The Grateful Giraffe. So this is all surrounded by different feelings. So there'll be sort of a little short area to the story, and there's a posture that goes with it, and you can link and talk about emotions. So again, there's lots of lovely ones out there, but that's one that I particularly enjoyed using with my children.
Oh, that's lovely. I've not come across that one myself, so I'll definitely be checking that one out.
There's lots of different yoga cards and things that you can use as well. This, again, is just one that I particularly quite like, but there'll be lots of other ones out there. So it's got lots of different postures on the card. It talks to you about step by step how to do them, different words that you might associate with the postures, and there's different breathing techniques and partner ones in this one. The children particularly love that social aspect of creating shapes with a partner. So this is one of the ones that if I'm teaching, it's always kind of with me, these cards, definitely.
Yeah, what a great resource as well. And if you're feeling like you need a little bit more calmness in your class, you can literally just grab the pack and pull out a few cards to just pull everyone back together. Really like that.
And the last few bits, these are some yoga posture stones. So these are from My Story Stones Rock, who you've probably seen on Instagram as well. But they're so beautiful and tactile to kind of hold. So the cards and these, the children do start to use them themselves once you've spent some time getting to know the different postures with them. So my eventual goal is to have a yoga sort of area in the classroom that's sort of just set up all the time for children to use. So these will be things that I'll be putting in there, but these are very beautiful.
Oh, they're lovely. They're so nice. I will definitely link those into the story notes as well. And I love the idea of setting up a space within your provision where children can just go off when they need to and do some of the yoga. A really calming space. It sounds really good. So I'd love to see how that area develops and any feedback that you've got on it.
One last one is just sort of a general one that's very good for well-being. That I've sort of shared before on my Instagram and things. I know quite a few other people have, but my mood stars are really, really beautiful. For if you're focusing on emotions or talking about emotions, again, that sort of tactile element to them. There's like Shy Star and Sleepy Star, and they're really, my children really connect, especially my nursery children, really connected with them to tap into how they're feeling at the beginning of that yoga. So yes, that's my different bag of tricks.
Oh, some great ideas there, which I can't wait to share with everyone that's listening. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. So you have shared with us in our podcast today lots of ideas about how yoga can not only help yourself as an individual, an early educator, but also how you can pop it into your teaching to support the needs of the children as well and support their well-being. Thank you so much. I feel really excited now, like I want to just go off and do some yoga with the children. You've really filled me with enthusiasm. So thank you so much for taking the time today to meet with us and share your lovely wisdom around yoga. Now, before we go, I ask all my podcast guests the same question. So we always finish with, what do you love about working in the early years sector?
Oh, I love that question. That's such a nice thing to finish on for everyone to feel sort of really uplifted. I think it really, for me, comes back to developing the whole child. And I think there's such a magic and a uniqueness about being in early years. And I think that ability for us to even though maybe there aren't things like yoga on the curriculum. I know that it's brought in lots throughout primary schools and high schools, but I think there is that really special time that we've got when we're in the early years, that we have a lot of flexibility and creativity to be able to really bring in all these different elements. So yeah, I think it's very unique and special, and we're very lucky in our jobs.
Oh, we really are, aren't we? We do the best job, I think. Now, before we go as well, one last little thing. You have a wonderful social media account. I've loved following you over on Instagram. I just wonder if you could share again for the listeners how they can find more out about you and your practice.
So I use Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as Miss Graham Play. But I have also started to use, because I finished my yoga teacher training to connect with the yoga community, I do also have a yoga one, which is where I'll be sharing lots of things to do with children's yoga as well. So that's called Leela Yoga with Chloe. So that's Lila, and that means playful in Sanskrit, which is the ancient Indian language, which is associated with yoga. So yeah, if you're interested in yoga things, then feel free to follow me on there. I'll be sharing those. But yeah, Miss Graham Play is sort of my main.
Oh, well, thank you. I'll definitely be checking out your new yoga account and giving you a follow. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your day now. What do you have planned for your afternoon today?
Oh, well, we have got some outdoor learning, some forest school that we're doing. We're very excited now that spring is sprung-ish.
Yeah, oh, it's such a lovely day out there. It's so sunny here in Leeds. So I hope you have a great afternoon, and thank you once again.
Thank you.